What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the released experimental changes that could go live as soon as this week, and we're going to break down all the implications for all these crazy changes, so make sure you watch to the end. But go to the GameLeap website right now for in-depth advanced Grandmaster VOD reviews, in-depth hero courses, and much more. Honestly, we got it all on the GameLeap website, so do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, the first character that we gotta talk about being changed on this list, it's Ana. Now, her biotic grenade will pass through allies with full health, which is actually crazy. For those of you who play Ana and have tried to get really sizable biotic grenades off, you know the frustration when you try to just curve it over your teammates and they either reposition or you just miss the mark and it hits them on the freaking shoulder and, you know, you just missed out on like a 3-man nade that you would have gotten. Now, that being said, if for some reason you wanted to apply the biotic grenade healing increased effect to someone who was full HP, you could always just throw it at their feet and it would still affect them as usual. But this gives you the extra flexibility to actually send this really powerful projectile through your teammates without having to position in a way that is fully peeking the enemy. On top of this, enemies are going to be less able to react to things like biotic grenades. When you throw it through your Reinhardt at full HP, you throw it through your Roadhog. That's going to be kind of funny if you're standing right behind your Reinhardt and he walks up with a shield. You could just throw it onto the enemy front line from behind cover, which is really cool. And I do think that Ana players are just gonna love this change across the board. It is really a nice quality of life change, and I think it's gonna be fantastic for those of you who are constantly searching for that high impact 3-man purple or more. And it's just a great change in my personal opinion, but definitely let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Now, the next change is interesting because it's actually a reversion to Brig from 175 to 150 base health, and this is like the talk of the town right now because Brig is just one of those really polarizing characters, and I talked about it in her previous pick rate. When she went up to that 175, she went from very little pick rate to an astounding amount of pick rate and a pretty high win percentage as well, and she enabled things like anti-dive, she enabled things like double shield, and a lot of players were frustrated. I mean, you saw players either love this online, or you see people like Symmetra making freaking 20 rants on Twitter. Whatever the case may be, Brig was definitely a very polarizing character, and while they tweaked her health upwards to 175, now if they revert it, it's really kind of funny because in my personal opinion, Brig was the main reason they decided to increase health in increments of 25 in the first place. I mean, yes, McCree and Widow got changed, but Brig was the one character that was truly meta-defining, and they really didn't find the balance that they wanted to on Brig, and it really goes to show that they might need some type of rework going forward. Now, as far as playing Brig in ranked, she could still be viable in certain situations, but she's probably going to be resorted down to the lower tiers. And honestly, you're probably going to be able to find better characters to climb with and increase your skills in the process rather than playing Brig. So that's unfortunate for you Brig mains, but maybe we'll see some reworks down the road. Now, before we move on to the other changes, however, just because Brig got nerfed doesn't mean all the changes that created the meta that we were approaching with the double shield meta and things like that are gone. I mean, in this list, there was no definitive nerfs to Baptiste. Zen was still seeing quite a bit of play, so we're going to have to wait and see how things shake out in the upcoming meta. However, Dive is going to be a more viable option, of course, just because Brig is not a viable counter option. Now, moving on to the next character that we got to break down in this list, it's Hanzo, and his storm arrows can now be manually canceled. And for those of you who don't play Hanzo, you don't know how big of a deal this is. I can't tell you how many times I'm 1 HP, right? And a Tracer is chasing me, and she's max HP, and I know that the only way I win that matchup is by hitting a regular arrow, headshot, or a body shot plus a melee with my regular arrow and not my storm arrow. This means that if I currently have my storm arrow active, I will literally just shoot them on the side of the wall so that I have my regular arrow back, because it's more effective at getting those one taps than the storm arrow, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. You see this a lot if you go watch a Hanzo streamer, where sometimes he'll whip out that storm arrow to do some, you know, shield busting damage, but then all of a sudden when he's in a 1v1, he would much rather have the more reliable one-shot kill, and this is just great. I mean, it's a really nice quality of life, but honestly, it's actually just a straight up buff, and it goes in the same direction that Genji's Reflect had, where Genji's Reflect can now be canceled, but this does spark a conversation about the future of balance. Now, hear me out here. For a second, imagine you're a game developer. Do you think there should be some sort of punishment for activating abilities at the inappropriate time? And the answer could be yes or no depending on who you are. You see, Genji used to not be able to cancel his reflect, of course, and in that time frame, players who needed to reload or players had a moment to know that they're not going to take any damage as long as they don't shoot that Genji's reflect, and that was like a moment of reprieve for them, and the Genji knew that as well, so he had to be a little bit more crafty with how he used his reflect, and he could wall climb to cancel it, and there was just a lot of different intricacies there, but there was a certain amount of punishment if he didn't get value out of the reflect, in the same way that there's a certain amount of punishment if your storm arrows all of a sudden don't become that good. You have to shoot them against the wall or whatever, and in that time you could be killed. Now, while yes, that can be frustrating, it does leave some nuance and some counterplay there, because if we could hypothetically live in a world where every single ability can be canceled, every single ultimate could be canceled, every single cast time could be canceled. Like, imagine something like Sigma's kinetic grasp, and that all of a sudden can be canceled and he could instantly whip out his shield. Now, that does add more counterplay for him up against enemies, but it also makes it so kinetic grasp isn't also vulnerable in the same way that it protects, because it's good against some types of fire but bad against things like hooks and beams and things like that. So there's a give and take here, and I think that it's interesting the way that they're going with this balance, but I really want to hear your opinion about this. Do you think that everything should be able to be canceled? Do you think ultimate should be able to be canceled, abilities should be able to be canceled in the middle of their cast time, or do you think that when you commit to an ability, some abilities should make you full commit to that ability even if there's a cost to that, and that is one of the costs to using the ability, so there's risk and reward involved? I really want to know your opinion about all that in the comments down below. Now we go to the next character that we got for you on this list. It's Mei, everyone's favorite character. No, all joking aside, this Ice Queen got an ice wall quality of life change, but honestly, it's also a buff, and she can manually destroy her ice wall while she's dead. And this is just something that should have been in the freaking game since forever ago. I can't tell you how many times I played scrims where we were playing Mei double shield and our Mei died and she couldn't drop her wall. It's just really frustrating sometimes, and I'm sure it's happened to you in ranked as well. But this is a really nice quality of life change for Mei in particular, because Ice Wall is something that can actually hurt your teammates, and you want to be able to drop that down when she dies. You could even go a step further here if you wanted to punish Mei if she was too strong by making it so her wall gets automatically destroyed when she dies. But I think that the way they're doing it here is absolutely fine. It's just a little bit weird watching the wall from the grave and like destroying it on purpose at the appropriate time to get value. A little bit weird having abilities that you can directly affect the fight while being dead, but this seems like an interesting compromise, and it's probably not going to matter too much. Now move on to the next character that we got for you on the list. It's Mora, and her biotic grasp is what got changed, and the healing resource consumption rate got lowered from 14 to 12.5. And this is a really interesting change, because this is just a flat out buff to Mora, giving her more heals. She's just far less of her healing bar, and she can just output more heals. She's going to be spending less time DPSing to build her healing resource up, and she's going to be able to enable a brawl frontline. I actually really like this change, because Mora is someone that will not enable double shield, and me personally, I think that double shield is a far inferior comp to something like Brawl as far as fun is concerned. I would much rather be playing Ryan Zarya all day, every day, in every single game, rather than seeing a Sigma and an Orisa just poke down shields, and most people would agree with me. Now, Mora will not enable those double shield compositions, but it will enable, of course, the Ryan Zarya compositions, and will probably make Lucio see more play as well. And personally, a character like Mora has a lot more nuanced counterplay than something like Brig. While still being good against dive, it gives support players a character to flock to if they're up against dive and they need more survivability without enabling some of these crazy strategies that we're talking about. And I do think that all of you disinfected Brig players should probably pick up Mora, because she's just going to be par for par better than she was before, and her pick rate is probably going to go up by quite a bit because of these changes. Now moving on to the next change that we got to break down in this video, which is actually really cool in my opinion, and it's Pharah's hover jets. Now if you crouch midair, you get to accelerate downwards, which is really awesome. This gives Pharah more mobility and allows her to transcend downwards when she's under threat or fire. What whether or not an enemy is looking to snipe you, whether or not you're trying to jiggle in the air and dodge enemy fire, or just do the dive bomb minigame strategies up against other hit scans. Whatever the case may be, having more mobility is amazing on Pharah, and the one form of mobility that she lacked, and a lot of the times that she got killed, was when she was floating a little bit high in the air. She boosted up really high in the air, and then that was when she was at the biggest risk, and if any enemies like turned the corner and could see her, she couldn't drop close enough to the ground to get back to her heals, get back to her peel, and get to safety. But now this just gives Pharah so much flexibility, and on maps like Ilios, some maps like Lijiang, I really do think that there are certain subsets of these maps that Pharah could be actually one of the best things you could be doing for those of you who master her. So I'm really excited about this change. This is probably one of the most exciting changes on the list besides the Ana changes for me. Then we went to the next character that we got for you on the list. It's Symmetra, and just like with Mei, Symmetra can manually destroy her teleporter while dead. Just a quality of life thing, the same thing with Mei, not much to talk about here. And of course, this leads into the last change, which is Torbjorn. His deployable turret can now be manually destroyed while dead. And yep, it's the same thing as before. Now, a lot of these abilities, these deployables, are going to be destroyable while you're dead. So you can already get them back on cooldown. You can already have them when you come out and you want to replace them, especially if you put your teleporter or turret in some really far off place that enemies didn't take, and they took that first point. You spawn on that second point defense on 2CP Mora, wherever map, and now you have to destroy it manually, and you're gonna have to wait, and you're not gonna have to wait. It's just more quality of life stuff. Not that important, but it's definitely important for you to know at the very least if you play these characters. But go to the GameLeap website right now if you want to master any of the characters on this list or any character in the game, because we have hundreds and hundreds of in-depth guides about every character. So do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below. But thank you so much for coming by. If you have any suggestions for videos, please let me know in the comments down below. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time.